is information sharing and transparency in the government, right to information, work culture, quality of service delivery, utilization of public funds, challenges of corruption. Information sharing and transparency in the governance. See, information sharing and transparency in the governance. Defining transparency in the governance, which means that an administration process under the broad light of public scrutiny. Transparency in the governance, which means the admin process under the broad light of public scrutiny. That is the transparency in the governance. See, it is a structural choice. The structural choice for public scrutiny. That structural choice of the public scrutiny. That is the transparency of the governance. You see, what is the significance? Why we need the transparency in the governance? Why we need the transparency in the governance? Because what is the essentiality of the transparency? Transparency is a premise of accountability. A premise of the accountability. Transparency is a basis of all the values of the Nolan, all the values of the Nolan Committee. Nolan Committee recommended values of ethics in the governance as the leadership value, objectivity value, honesty, selflessness. So transparency is actually a corollary of accountability. Corollary of the accountability. That's the importance of transparency. Then transparency establishes public trust, the trust and faith on the state and public establishments. The trust and the faith of the public establishment, a certainty in the public establishment, the stress and the faith. Transparency establishes a cordial public relations. So it is the transparency in the governance as the premise of the good governance, ethical governance. The evolution of transparency in governance in India, transparency in the state establishment in India. The evolution of transparency in the state establishment in India could be established in 3 stages. The first stage was of the colonial stage, known for the extreme red tapeism. The extreme red tapeism of the colonial stage. The colonial administration, guarded by Official Secret Act of 1923, given legitimacy to the red tapeism. So a state system based absolutely on fear and fear and secrecy of the colonial era that marks the colonial times, where the fear and secrecy on all the decisions, the which include the grave disasters of public for the public, like the famine decisions during the famine, on all the activities. It was the absolute secrecy from the highest level to the lowest one. Then the of next stage in which the transparency in the governance is analyzed in the post-independent times. In the post-independent times, up to in the pre-reform times, the post-colonial era, known for the legacy of the colonial times and the centralization in which Inspectorate Raj of licensing system establishes a government of paternalistic secrecy, a government of paternalistic secrecy, a paternalistic tendencies or the paternalistic secrecy seems to be the norm and the framework of the government in the post-colonial time. The impact of liberalization, the advent of new public administration, with the new role of the state, in which the red tapeism is subjected to dismantling the red tapeism. It is the advent of a new attitude as the citizens has the right of being the masters of the governance, in which the Right to Information Act of 2005 given legitimacy of conferring the access to information as the fundamental right, access to information as a part of fundamental right under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A. So it is the three stages of the transparency, in the governance. Three stages of the transparency in the governance. What are the government measures? What are the institutional arrangements of establishing transparency in the governance? Institutional arrangement, or what are the government measures? Government measures in regard to the transparency in the governance. One is the Right to Information Act. Right to Information Act as a right-based approach. Then the institutional measures of transparency. One is Parliament as the highest platform of information in India. Parliament as the highest platform of the information in India. Any information is being delivered on the floor of the Parliament is known for its authenticity. Being the highest platform of information, but the parliamentary question are known for the informations on public matters of importance. Then parliamentary debate, then parliamentary audit, then transparency was enforced by the CAG report. CAG report is a form of scrutinization of the governance matters, government's matters. How CAG report establishes the element of transparency. How CAG report is a sanctified document of the transparency, sanctified document of transparency is because of scrutiny. It is the scrutinization of scrutinization in the lines of modern audit, which emphasize on efficiency, effectiveness, effectiveness of the expenditure, efficiency of the expenditure, effectiveness of the expenditure, and the legal compliance of the expenditure. So CAG report is a prime of establishing transparency in the governance. Then a legislative arrangement of transparency. Legislative arrangement of transparency in the form of RTI Act. RTI Act has a right to the citizen, over the administrative affairs of public relations. Then third one is the enforcement institutions of scrutinization, that is Lokpal, anti-corruption agencies as the CVC, Lokpal, CVC, and others. Then the role of court of scrutinizing the executive actions, in which the court act as institution of interest in transparency. Then the digitalization of governance, administration, the digital e-governance establishes an absolute transparency in which administration with a timeline function, administration without human interface. That means eliminating the middleman. Then establishes direct beneficiaries. So this marks the institutional infrastructure for information sharing and transparency in the governance. Then Right to Information Act of 2015. Right to Information Act of 2015. Right to Information Act. The objective of the Right to Information Act is to entrust transparency, to destroy the red tapeism. Second one is to enforce accountability. Third one is conferment of rights under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A. Conferment of rights under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A. That is the RTI Act. RTI, Right to Information Act, defines the information. Information means any records, documents, memo, circular, orders, press release, opinion, advice, even the electronic data as a comprehensive definition of categorization of information. Then public institution obliged, or any public authority or even NGO registered under the law of government, under the law. Those comes under the provisions of the RPA, the important provisions of the RTI. Provisions. One is timeline stipulations. Time limit, that any information demanded shall be provided within 30 days. And information in regard to right to life and public liberty, right to life and individual liberties should be fulfilled within 48 hours. Then Act establishes a procedure to access. That means a procedure to access in the form of a simplistic procedure in the form of application of request for the information with a nominal pay, but not for the people below poverty line. That is the payment not for the fees not for the people below the poverty line. Then the every department, that is organizational procedure, every department shall have a public information officer to provide to the RTI the request. Then second, the officer has to provide in a timely basis. Failing would have the penalty shall be penalized for the delay of 250 rupees per day. 250 rupees per day to the maximum of 25,000. And the information, that means the non-satisfaction of the information is subject to appeal. The appeal to the senior officer and to the information commissioner. Act establishes the union government to establish chief information commissioner and the state information commissioner for every state. So these are the provisions of the RTI. What is the significance of the RTI? RTI, when it came into force in 2005, RTI becomes a frontline instrument against the corruption. A frontline instrument in fighting the corruption. All the scams are exposed only with the help of information acquired from the RTI. That is a frontline instrument in fighting corruption. Then RTI, a significance of RTI, revolutionized the information ecosystem in governance. One is RTI established a participative democracy with the right to have access to, right to get informed, a participative democracy. A right to get informed establishes equality and right to get informed destroys red tapeism, destroyed equal access to all the citizens. Then RTI is able to establish a structure of vigilance, among the public, that prohibited any act of malfeasance in the governance and strengthens the transparency, establishes a new era of public administration. These are the aspects of information sharing and the RTA. Okay. Then quality of service, service delivery. Quality of service delivery. What is the quality of service delivery in India? Quality of service delivery depends upon perception of the people. Depends upon the perception of the people. That means when the expectations met by service, when their expectations met by the service, that is the quality of service. When the expectations met by the service is equal, means quality. Okay, service standards met the expectations, it is the quality, best quality. When the service standards are more than the expectation, it is when they are not expecting, but service standards are given, means best quality. When the expectations are high, service standards are less, means low quality. So it is the perception of the people, perception of the public, the perception of the public that decides the quality of service. Quality of service, when the quality of service as yardstick applied, there is a difference in which the quality of services of the public establishments, public institutions are lesser than the private in general in India. Quality of services of the public hospitals lesser than the private hospitals because of people perception. Because of the people perception, you say the people strongly believe that the private hospitals are better in delivering the care and the health service than of the public general hospital. But there were certain public institutions doing better than the private. You see, some of the public sector banks are performing better than the private. There's a research and development agencies, DRDO doing the quality of services are better than the private in the critical technology adoptions. So it depends on the people's perception. What are the reasons for the low quality of services in public sector in India? What are the reasons for the low quality of services in public establishments in India? What are the reasons for the low quality of services in the public establishment? One is the major reason. One is the deficit in the human resources, management resources, then technology. Deficit. Then second one is lack of accountability mechanism. In regard to time and quality. Lack of accountability mechanism. The bureaucrats are not accountable to the non-fulfillment of the projects and deliveries in regard to the time manner. Then the third one is third one is a bottleneck. A bottleneck in the last mile delivery. Some people's always missing. Some people's always missing is accepted as a culture. Accepted as a culture. Rehabilitation projects cover nearly 98% of the project affected family. Two people's miss. The bureaucrats not taken sumoto efforts to deliver the service for those peoples. So there is always a bottleneck in the last mile delivery in India. That bottleneck makes the people to be structurally in marginalized conditions. So yeah, all these three that we listed out, all these three are listed out was due to people perception, due to the people's perception, public perception. That means government institutions don't have adequate technology. Government institutions don't have adequate skills. Government bureaucrats, government officers don't bother if someone is missing. Someone is missing and they need not answer. These are all the people perception. These are all the people perception. A quality of services also fail because of corruption. Because of the corruption. These are all the people perception. So now the question is, in 21st century, in the present system of governance, there are developments in the public institutions, development in where the public institutions adopted new technology. Public bureaucrats were infused with the new skills. Still problem persists. Despite of change in the institutions, the problem persists. Why still the problem persists? Still problem persists is purely because of public perceptions. Despite of the change, public perceptions are still new public aspirations, because public perceptions are oriented to global standards, new aspirations. When the metro is deployed, public demands Singapore standards of the metro. Up to 2000, the people of India are not aware what is metro. People of India is cultivated to travel in the slow moving trains, suburban transport of rush. Mumbai suburban rush. Metro is an upgraded, but people aspirations increase. So the reason here is mismatch. That is, probably new generation aspirations are more. That means then the second problem today, still the bottleneck of last mile delivery exists. The two problems. One is the rise in the public aspirations, rise in the public expectations, where the government establishments reformed themselves, equipped, upgraded themselves, but not able to match the public. And second one is still the bottleneck. So people perception, despite of change, in the incident, RTA came, people still believe corruption exists. Corruption exists highly. When the government changed, a corrupt government was changed with the new government. People are still, some people are still being dissatisfied. What the new government is also corrupt. A belief, public perception. So it takes a time. But the reason, what are the measures of improving the quality of service delivery in India? What are the measures of improving the quality of service delivery in India? Improving the quality of service delivery in India. What are the measures? The measures is oriented to one, the standards of delivery, upgrading the standards of delivery, upgrading the standards of delivery. Then second, the measures in oriented to establish a people-friendly redressal systems. People-friendly redressal system. Then third, providing last mile delivery certainty, and elimination of the middleman. Then improving capacity of service delivery. Improving the capacity of the service delivery. Then scrutinization through audit. Scrutinization to audit. So it was the 5 areas to be improved. The government measures in those 5 areas, improving the standards in which the government measures in the form of people's friendly citizen charter, Sivotam framework, or the citizen friendly charters. Then redressal. That is, redressal is to by the measure of the central public projects, appraisal systems, call center, a digitally enabled redressal mechanism. Then third measure, last mile delivery to be resolved through digital. Last mile delivery to be resolved to the digital. Then improving capacity by the government measures in the form of Mission Karma Yogi, that is infusing the ethical and human factors in the administration, and the audit scrutiny in the form of good governance index for the states. Some of the programs states. So the measures to improve in the 5 areas to be concentrated on technology adaptations, and second one is improving the human resources. The 5 important scheme. Any example of improved government projects of better quality in service delivery, improved government project. One is Pradhan Mantri Suryagar Bijli Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Suryagar Bijli Yojana is a digital enabled measure of promoting solar energy in the form of direct benefit transfers. Where the subsidy is provided. Then ABBA card, ABBA and Ayushman Bharat digital mission is to establish e-documentation Then passport services with the prescribed timeline of within a week, prescribed timeline within a week, within a week, within a week. Then the Vishwakarma Yojana as a skill upgradation program of digital enabled with a biometric attendance, biometric registration attendance, skill verification, and digitally enabled certifications. These are the aspects of promoting quality in service delivery in governance. What is quality in service delivery? What are the reasons for the low standards of quality and service delivery in public institutions in India? And what are the measures to improve? Then some examples. Measures to improve, then some examples. That is the quality in service delivery. Then utilization of public funds. Utilization of the public funds. Utilization of the public funds in India. That means utilization of the public funds. What is a public fund? Public fund. The utilization of the public fund. Public fund is one that the fund pool of constitutional and legal authorized. Constitutional and the legal authorized. Legal authorization. It was the Consolidated Fund of India. Consolidated Fund of India. Consolidated Fund of India is a constitutionally established fund. What are the components of the Consolidated Fund of India? The components of the Consolidated Fund of India, that means all the revenues, all the tax and the non-tax revenues of the state, all the revenues of the government of India should be incurred into the consolidated fund. All the revenues and all the income, the income on return on government investments, all the income, all the fees for the services provided by the government of India, fees, judicial service, promissory notes, all the fees, services, then any of the credits, loans made on the government of India, that comes under the Consolidated Fund of India. Then any of the fund that the government of India is a guarantee, any government guarantee, all comes under the Consolidated Fund of India. Consolidated Fund of India, that is any expenditure on the Consolidated Fund of India shall be made only with the authorization of Parliament. Only with the authorization of the Parliament. Okay. So it is the Consolidated Fund of India and also the contingency fund. Contingency fund is a fund under the disposal of the President of India. A fund under the disposal of the President of India to meet any unforeseen expenditure. To meet any unforeseen expenditure as a natural disaster, a war, the financial crisis. On Contingency Fund of India to be replenished by the Consolidated Fund of India and also to be authorized by the Parliament. also to be authorized by the Parliament. That is the that is the public fund, also to the authorized by the Parliament. That is the public fund. The utility of the public fund. The utility of the public fund is made. The utility of the public fund is made under the authorization by the expenditure. The expenditure, the types of expenditure. The types of expenditure. One is the types of expenditure. One is the development expenditure. Development expenditure. Development expenditure. Development expenditure. Then the development expenditure. Then the charged expenditure. The expenditure charged upon the Consolidated Fund of India. Charge upon the Consolidated Fund of India. A development expenditure. Then the expenditure of development expenditure, the defense, the charged expenditure, then non-developmental expenditure, non-developmental expenditure, non-developmental expenditure. Then the contingency expenditure, contingency expenditure, contingency expenditure, or those the expenditure that is made from the public fund of the Consolidated Fund of India. Consolidated Fund of India exists in the union level, but also in the state level. The state level in which the Consolidated Fund of India exists. Then what are the problems of utility of the public fund in India? What are the problems of the utility of the public fund? The problems of the utility of the public fund in India are the problems of utility. Problems of utility was known for the problems of the utility was known for the complexity and multiplicity, complexity and the multiplicity in India. Complexity and the multiplicity. That means multiple plans, multiple schemes, and schemes of overlapping departments. The schemes of overlapping departments. Then the complexity in complexity in the targeted individuals of welfare, targeted individuals for welfare, the targeted individuals for the welfare. That is the problem. The targeted individuals for welfare. Then the utility of public fund was also known for centralization in decisions, centralization in the decisions. That is the second of the problem, the third of the problem for the utility of the public fund. Then the lack of social audit. Then third one is corruption. The last one is the corruption on nexus. The corruption on the nexus of favoritism and all. So this seems to be the major problem. What are the safeguards? Exist for utility of public funds in India? What are the safeguards? the safeguards of the utility of the public funds in India. What are the institutional safeguards? Institutional safeguards for the utility of the public funds in India. One is the parliamentary control. Parliamentary control. The parliamentary control itself is scrutinization. Parliamentary, how Parliament control on finance. Parliamentary control on finance and expenditure in India. How parliamentary control finance and expenditure. Parliamentary control on finance and expenditure in the form of the appropriation bill. Appropriation bill. Appropriation bill in which the 20% of the expenditure to the governments, especially the grant in aids to all the departments, are being discussed. Then department, then the parliamentary committees, especially the estimate committee. The estimate committee shall scrutinize the budget, annual financial bill, then scrutinize the budget or the annual financial bill. Estimate committee shall scrutinize and shall scrutinize the last financial year expenditure. Then also audit the present financial expenditure and also suggest the alternative system of expenditure. That is estimate committee. Then public accounts committee of the parliament. Public accounts committee shall scrutinize the CAG report. So these are the two standing committees other than the departmental committees to scrutinize the expenditure. Then it was the CAG report. CAG report as a watchdog of the public expenditure. CAG report as the watchdog of the public expenditure. What are all the components of the CAG report? CAG report shall scrutinize to ensure the money incurred only with the authorization of the parliament. That means ensure the appropriation of the money. Then CAG report also scrutinize the expenditure. Scrutinize the expenditure. Whether the expenditure, that means the expenditure, fulfillment of the expenditure made only, whether the expenditure met the whether the expenditure met the purpose of appropriation. That is the CAG. That is the role of the CAG. Then CAG shall audit. The revenue and expenditure of all the departments of the state of India. CAG audit, which includes the revenue audit, expenditure audit, and the forensic audit. CAG audit also deals with scrutinization of quantitative and qualitative means of expenditure. Quantitative and qualitative means of expenditure. CAG of being the guardian of public purse, able to expose the major scams of India. Able to expose the major scams of India as the CAG, that is the Mundra scheme, Mundra Jeep scam. Then Bofors scam in India. Then 2G scam, the 2G scam. CAG report is able to expose the 2G scams in India. That is the aspect. But then the institution, enforceable institutions as the Lokpal and the Lokayukta, the anti-corruption institution. Lokayukta, anti-corruption institutions were also the guardians of the utility of public funds. Guardians of utility of the public funds. What are the recent measures, the government measures? What are the government measures in regard to what are the government measures of promoting the utility of promoting the better utilization of the public funds in India? Government measures in better utilization of the public funds is in the form of certain measures. The measures, one is the digital adaptations. The digital adaptation of digital technology in the form of GEM, Government E-Procurement Scheme. Government E-Procurement Scheme, GEM. Government E-Procurement Schemes, digital adaptations. Then the documentation of then the e-registrations and the e-accounting systems. Then the government measures, which include the most important measures, that was direct benefit transfers. Direct benefit transfer as a revolution in India. A revolution in India in the prudent use of public fund. A revolution in prudent use of public fund. That is e-transfer, the direct benefit transfer. One is eliminated the middleman. Then the second one is direct benefit transfer, resulted in prohibited leakages, prohibited the leakage. Then direct benefit transfer conferred the last mile delivery of public welfare services. Last mile delivery. Then e-registration, e-process, that means the government measures in utilization of public fund. Then the government measures in the form of the audit, the social audit of the public projects, Then the government measures in regard to strengthening of RTI, RTI, which includes the RTI, that is the disclosure of the expenditure, cost and expenditure of the projects. Disclosure of the cost and the expenditure of the project. What are the suggestions? What are the suggestions? Our suggestions in regard to the better utilization of the public funds. The suggestion, better utilization of the public fund should be based on efficiency. Should be based on efficiency in its objective. So it need a grassroots planning, decentralized planning, strengthening the decentralized planning. Then participatory role in planning, implementation and audit. Planning, implementation and audit. The better utilization of the public fund to be analyzed in qualitative terms, more in the qualitative terms, which to be emphasized more on the human factors, That means the assessment that how far the Ayushman Bharat has served the people below the poverty line in the qualitative terms, than of the money terms. That is the important money terms. Then the misuse of public fund should have an effective accountability mechanism to avoid the misuse of public funds, Then adoption of technology, innovative technology, blockchain in the matters, in the blockchain technology in regard to the utility of public fund in the expenditure matters of the public fund. That is the measures. That was the suggestive measures. Then corruption. What are the corruption in India? Corruption seems to be a chronic. It was Prime Minister Indira Gandhi stated corruption is chronic and global phenomena. Corruption is chronic on the global phenomena in India. Global phenomena that affects. It is the Arthashastra that deals with the corruption. Highlights the corruption. What are the reasons for the corruption in India? What are the reasons? What are the reasons for the corruption in the state public of India? What are the reasons for the corruption? It was the ARC Commission, ARC2 Commission, ARC2 Commission highlights certain reasons, the multiple reasons for the corruptions, multiple factors of corruption. One is the historical factors, historical legacy. There is a traditional practice of the Nasrana practice, where the people visiting the lords with the payment of any. That makes the corruption as a part of culture, Nasrana. That was continued even with the rule of East India Company, Nasranam, the historical legacy of feudal traditions. Then feudal traditions continued from the pre-British times to the British times. Then the second one is official secret, that is the colonial red tapeism. Colonial red tapeism makes the normative future of the government and corruption as a normal to the public. That is the historical factors. The historical factor as the reason. Then socio-cultural factors. Socio-cultural factor. It was the society, the people, the ruling establishment is corrupt because of being tolerated by the society. It was Vittal, the farmer, the farmer CVC commissioner, the formal Central Vigilance Commissioner, the first Central Vigilance Commissioner stated the corruption is because of the value cherished by the individual. The corruption in India is due to the value cherished by the individual and the value cherished by the society. That means money for the votes. Society. It was the Kaushik Basu, an author, stating a new phenomena of Sanskritization of the corruption. Sanskritization of the corruption is an attitude of the poor families, individuals of the poor families aspiring to earn corruption after the rise in the standard of living. After getting the government job, the individuals of the poor family aiming the government job to become rich. Government job as a shortcut to become millionaire in India. That is a tendency of imitating the higher government officials who are corrupt. That is a form of Sanskritization of the corruption. That is the socio-cultural factor. Then the third one, ARC talks about the political factor. The political factors of the corruption associated with the corruption. The political factor which is based on nepotism, and favoritism in India. Then highly centralized system of administration that led to the corruption in India. That is the political factors. Then corruption in India was also due to the economic factors. Economic factors was due to non-formalized futures of the economy. Non-formalized futures. There is no transparency in income. Non-formalized leads to the role of Role of parallel economy, black money, the role of black money, corruption, role of black money, and that led to sudden rich without accountability to disclose, because of the highly non-formalized. Then corruption in India was due to weak institutional check, weak institutions, the weak institutions of checking the corruption. Weak institutions, especially judiciary, the judiciary institution, the judiciary for the prolongation, litigation, judiciary institution exists as ineffective one for the prolongation, litigation, and very difficulty in proving and difficulty in convictions. For example, 2G scam failed in the special court. So these were the reasons. The political factor, which include elections as a starting point of black money and corruption in India. What is the impact of corruption? What is the impact of corruption? What is the impact of the corruption in India? The impact of corruption. The term corruption itself means destruction. In Latin word, corruption means ruining. Impact of corruption in the ethical context. The impact of corruption destroys the moral fiber of the society, the moral fiber on which the entire society exists, the moral fiber of the society. So it leads to lack of trust, mistrust, a greater mistrust and faith. The lack of faith, mistrust and lack of faith, and the lack of faith on the government establishment, on the state. Mistrust and lack of faith on the state. It pollutes the human relations. Because corruption is a synonym of a disease. It pollutes the human relations. Human relations become untrusted based on the mistrust. Human relations based on absolutes. Lack of faith. Lack of faith means lack of faith even in the basic institutions of life, even in the family. So it destroys. Then corruption leads to the condition of misnormal conditions, where the rich getting rich in day to day, rich getting rich and poor getting poor, rich getting rich and the poor getting poor in day to day basis. day-to-day basis, which may leads to the conditions of the public unrest, the conditions of the public unrest. See, imagine that if the present problem going on in Delhi, imagine if the government is directly associated with corruption, it would be a greater exasperations, where the people assembled are given greater legitimacy. If the existing government is charged with any major scam, means what would be the condition? A greater condition. So it led to the public unrest. Then corruption leads to vicious cycle, where the corruption leads to the maladministration. Corruption leads to maladministration. Maladministration leads to the social disharmony. And social disharmony based on mistrust will again leads to the advent of maladministration and again corruption. Corruption leads to the social, that is the social evil, and social decadence. That again leads to the corruption. It is a vicious cycle. Corruption shall destroy the ethical framework of a social structure. It is the ethical framework on which all the structural aspects are built that would be destroyed by the corruption. Corruption leads to poverty. Corruption leads to malgovernance. And corruption shall destroy a state and the people. Shall destroy the state and the people. What are the measures taken to deal with the corruption? What are the measures taken to deal with the corruption? What are the measures? The measures taken. One is legal measures taken by the government of India in its war against corruption. One is the legal measures. The legal measures against in the war against the corruption. The legal measures. What are the legal measures? The legal measures taken in the war against the corruption. That is the legislations against the corruption. One is the anti-corruption law. Legal measures against the corruption. One is the Prevention of Corruption Act. Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988, amended in 2018, in which defines the corruption as the bribe taken or given and the penalties. Then Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Prevention of Money Laundering Act of 2002 empowers the enforcement department to seize, attach, any property or assets on the proceeds of the crime came out of corruption. Came out of the corruption. That means out of corruption, a property purchase means ED can attach the property, the possession of the property. Then Right to Information Act. Then Benami Transaction, Prohibition of Benami Transaction Act. Benami Transaction Act. That means the corrupt receipt of the bribe to the Benami of the person. A prohibition of the Benami transfer, that is confiscation and penalization of proxy identities. Then Whistleblowers Corruption Act. Whistleblowers Corruption Act. Whistleblowers Protection Act. Then institutional measures. What are the institutional measures or the institutions in fight against the corruption? One is the CAG. CAG, a constitutional institution and its audit. Then Central Bureau of Investigation as the investigative agency to inquire on the charges of corruption. Then Central Vigilance Commission. Then the Lokayuctas and the Lokpal. Legislative measures, institutional measures, and the administrative reforms against the corruption. One is establishing standard operating procedures in the government establishment. Then the second one is abolition of recent government measures against corruption. Abolition of interviews for the Group A and Group B, Group C, to prohibit favoritism and the nepotism. Then the pension rules, innovations of the pension rules amendment for the premature compulsion retirements, even of the public servant, even of inaction in delivering the public service, inaction and neglect were also an act of corruption. Then GIM, government e-procurement, and the integrity obligations with the contractors who are appointed for the public service, an agreement in the form of agreement. Then citizen charter. Then the most important measure is taken against the corruption is the digital adoptions in the governance. One is the direct benefit transfer that checked the corruption in the form of eliminating the middleman. Then second, e-marketplace, government marketplace. That means a transparent tenders in which the corruption is eliminated. The check. Then the AI, adoption of the AI with the digilockers and the adoption of AI, in which information confidence is maintained by the digilockers. information confidence, and transparent transactions. Transparent transactions. All the documentation of assets, land assets, vehicle assets, movable and non-movable assets. Then DBT returns, faceless tax assessment system. Faceless tax assessment system in income tax. Then faceless approval of import in customs. Faceless approval of imports in the customs. That led to lesser leakages, greater transparency, accountable governance, and better public outcome. Better public outcome. Okay. Does it mean that the corruption disappeared in India? Which it means the corruption disappeared in India. Which it means the corruption disappeared in India. Why corruption continues? Why corruption continues despite of legislative measures, institutional measures, administrative checks, legislative measures, institutional measures, and the administrative check. Why corruption continued in India? The corruption continues in India in a status. How the corruption continues in India? Corruption continues, still exists in India in the form of corrupt mafias. What is the present status of corruption? The present status of the corruption. The present status of the corruption in India. The present status of the corruption. The corruption exists in India in the form of the interested vested mafias, the vested mafias in the critical sectors, vested mafias in the critical sector, the vested mafias in some of the critical sectors. One is education. It is the education mafia. Yesterday also, paper leaked in Uttarakhand government abolished 2 exams and found a professor leaked the paper. Yesterday also paper leaks existing. 3 months before Punjab, then Rajasthan. 2 years before Rajasthan. Paper leaks existing. TNPSC paper leaks are normal. So it is a mafia in the education as a well-oiled system. It is not an opportunistic, occasional. It is an oil system. When chance occurs, they involve. Then not only paper leak, education mafia, not associated only with the paper leak. Bogus certifications, proxy exam. Someone writes the exam for someone. Proxy exam. Someone, one write for other. Proxy exam. Bogus certification. Okay. Proxy exam. Then bogus institutions. Institution never exist, but a course conducted. A school itself ran without approval at the time of SSLC exam. So education mafia. Then the second one is financial market. Financial market. Financial market exists with the mafia of cartelization, mafia of the cartelization, Ponzi schemes, Ponzi, rotating the money. Ponzi's educational mafia led to Ponzi schemes like that MLM schemes, MLM, multi-level marketing schemes, education, financial institutions, educational institutions, as well as the as well as the as well as in the administration institutions, where the job promises, loan promises, administrative institutional job promises, loan promises, grant promises. So it exists as in the form of vested mafia, in the form of the vested mafia. Then second, corruption exists. Corruption exists in the sector, at the time of interactions with the informal sector, interactions with the informal sectors, where the government interact with the informal sector. For example, retail markets. Retail markets comes under the informal sector. Retail markets known for corrupt activities of selling narcotics, panpara, narcotics. It is a retail unit of 5 rupees, 10 rupees. But panpara scam allegation associated with some IPS officers in Tamil Nadu. 2 years back, scam exposed. That is the retail. That means retail. When the establishment interact with the retail, in which corruption, that it is a corruption of two. One is government tolerance towards the retail. Government tolerance. Pollution bottom, panparak within bottom. That enable him to send even opium, even the narcotic chocolates. So a retail of the informal sector known for the acts of critical corruptions, narcotics. Then that means official apathy and tolerance. Second reason is bribe. Second reason is the officials bribe given. Then third one is inaction. Third one is the inaction. A complaint after complaint comes over a retail shop near a school near to the police station that the chocolates are selling there. Complaint after complaint comes to the police station. But the inaction encourages the corruption. Inaction encourages the corruption. That is interactions in the formal sector. Then corruption exists in the places. Corruptions exist in the places, mostly in the lower levels of administration. Lower levels of the administration. Lower levels of the administration. Corruption in the lower levels of administration is very sensitive because it deals with the poor. It deals with the life matters of poor. Very sensitive. Why? Why this corruption exists despite of various measures taken by the government? Why this corruption exists despite of measures taken by the government? Why this corruption still exists in India? Why this corruption still exists? Corruption is higher places, somewhat reduced, checked. Why this corruption still exists in India? Corruption exists in the lower level of administration, and corruption also exists in the public, in the domain of public domain, in the public domain, as in the form of cash for vote, in the public domain, public occasional act of middleman, public domain. Why this act? Because the major problem, despite of reforms in the laws, institutions, administrations, because of in India, there is a reduction of corruption in volume terms, but rise in corruption in the qualitative terms, in the value terms. Rise of corruption in the value terms. In 1956-52 elections, no people received a cash for vote because of a mismatch. That means corruption in India was able to restrictions through institutional changes. Institutional changes are not matched with the behavioral changes, in India. Behavioral changes, that means the corruption can be eliminated only by the behaviors with the human actions in ethical lines. It needs a society of ethical competence, and it is a necessity for a change in the attitude, change in the values attitude, change in the values, attitude, and perception of the society. Change in the values, attitudes, and the perception of the society. What are our suggestion? What are all our suggestion to check the corruption? What are all the suggestions to check the corruption? Suggestions to check the corruption. Suggestion to check the corruption. One is the strengthening of institutions. That means especially the judicial institution. Strengthening of the judicial institution for the speedy trial, conviction rate, speedy trials and the conviction rate. Speedy trials and the conviction rates. Then second one is interesting the accountability and interesting the accountability on public servants, serving as public servants with the periodic review and with the code of conduct, code of conduct, periodic review on the code of conduct. Then third one is decentralization and participatory governance. Decentralization and participatory governance. Then a culture of reward, a culture of reward and a reprimand, a reward for the virtuous and reprimand for the corrupt. Reward and the reprimand for the corrupt. Reward and the reprimand for the corrupt. Then the fifth one is that is the interesting accountability and transparency. Transparency in the form of disclosures of the assets, disclosures of their income, assets, transparency and the accountability. Then the necessity of inculcating values in the human relations. Okay. C.N. Whittle, who stated that the corruption exists because of the value cherished by the society, value cherished by the individual, value cherished by the society, value cherished by the individual, and the check of the state. So this forms the corruption. முடிஞ்சு. Crisis in the ethical values. Other suggestion, whistleblowers protection. What policy measures do you suggest to strengthen the protection to safeguard the whistleblower? Who is a whistleblower? Whistleblower is one who exposes the corruption in the institution. Who exposes the corruption in the institution. Okay. The significance of the whistleblower behavior is the expression of ethical mind. Why we need to protect the whistleblower? Whistleblower protection is of strengthening the ethical aspects. Second one is necessity for legality. Legality also. The whistleblower who report corruption, illegal activities, wrongdoing, misconduct to concerned authorities runs the risk of being exposed, grave danger, victimization. What policy measures do policy measures? One is legislative measures. Whistleblower Protection Act. Then the legal measures of protection, personal protection. Then then the necessity of encouragement for the whistleblower activities. There is a view that the Official Secret Act is obstacle to implement the Right to Information Act. Do you agree with this view, or is now, effective utilization of public fund is the crucial meeting development goals. Critically examine the reason for underutilization and misutilization. What are the reasons for underutilization and misutilization? Complexity, plurality, then corruption, then lack of institutional check. Okay. Solution is technology adoption. Non-performance of duty by a public servant is a form of corruption. Do you agree with this view? எப்படி சொல்வது? Non-performance is a corrupt act. எப்படி? Non-performance due to apathy, tolerance to act is a check on corruption. Example is retail channels of narcotic. Education mafia, proxy candidatures. Then Right to Information Act is not all about the citizen empowerment alone. It defines the concept of accountability. Impact of right to information. Concept of accountability. Right to information led to an impact of the enforcing accountability by the disclosures, and it is a prime instrument against the corruption. Corruption causes misuse of the government treasury, administrative inefficiency, obstruction in the path of national development. Corruption is vicious. Corruption leads to maladministration. Maladministration leads to social disharmony, and again maladministration destroys the government finance. Recent developments such as the introduction of RTI media, judicial activism are powerful in bringing about the greater transparency and accountability. However, being observed at times, the mechanisms are misused. Another negative effect that the officers now afraid to take preempt action. Analyze the situation in detail, suggest how this dichotomy can be resolved. Problem is All the changes in the institution, but not behavioral change. But not the behavioral change. Behavior is based on mistrust, uncertainty, apathy, and all. Today, we find, despite of various measures like prescribing code of conduct, setting up vigilance cells, commissions, RTA, active media, and strengthening of legal economy, corrupt practices not under control. Why corruption still exists in India? Why corruption still exists in India? Evaluating all these measures taken deals with the corruption at highest levels. And all these measures taken for the formal institution, not for the informal. Correct more strategies to deal with the corruption. Need of ethical value inculcations in the human relations. It is often said that poverty led to corruption. There is no dearth of instances when the affluent poor people indulge in corruption in a big way. What are the basic causes of corruption among the people? Support your answers with examples. What are the basic causes of corruption among the people? As Sin Wintel states that the value cherished by the society and the value cherished by the individual is the cause of the corruption. Is the cause of the corruption. Why the people are being corrupt? Why the people are being corrupt? Why the people are being corrupt? People are being corrupt is because of socio-cultural establishment, socio-cultural ecosystem. Socio-cultural ecosystem, why the people tend to be corrupt? Because socio-cultural ecosystem caused by one reason. One reason is legacy of Inspectorate Raj, Santanam Committee. Santanam Committee highlight. Santanam Committee highlight. That means secrecy, bureaucratic control, and centralization are the three reasons. Legacy of the Inspectorate Raj. Then second, people are corrupt because scarcity in opportunities. Why the people are corrupt? Because scarcity in opportunities. Opportunities are scarce. For a job, people tend to have a shortcut to have the job. Then third one is privilege of government service. Privilege of government. Government service ensures the people with the certainty, government jobs. ASC report types. Support your answer with the example. What is the example? Example that the people are corrupt. Any example? Papers, question paper. Any example? Cash for vote. Examples. Okay. Okay. முடிஞ்சிடுச்சு. ஓகேவா? ஏதாவது விட்டுருக்கா? எல்லாமே பார்த்தோம். செக்ஷனே முடிஞ்சிடுச்சு. நாளைக்கு கேசஸ் 10 மணி நேரம் முடிஞ்சிடும். ஓகே, இதை மட்டும் பாருங்க. நேற்று ஸ்லைட்ஸ் வந்துதா? நேற்று ஸ்லைட்ஸ் வந்துடுச்சா? நேற்று ஈவினிங் போட்டேன், இப்போ வந்துடும். ஆன்சரிங் ப்ராக்டிஸா? நீ ஆன்சர்ஸ் எழுத வந்துடும். கண்டென்ட் இது போதும். சரி,
எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ்ன்றது இப்போ படிச்ச அந்த இது வச்சு சினாரியோ கொஞ்சம் ஈஸி இது